Hey, what's up guys? Back again with another video in the Java JDA and JDA utility series. This episode I'm going to show you how to make a new user info command.
They say diamonds, diamonds, they say diamonds, the girl's best friend. Just so you know, Dwayne Carter, that my best man. I ain't playing, so no switching to the next plan. I need a
Okay guys, so we actually made a user info command before, when we learned how to work with the embedded builder objects, but I'm going to show you how to redo it, make it even more awesome, especially with the JDA utilities API. So it's going to be really really cool. It's going to be even more advanced, hopefully. Well, it will be, but anyway. So I'm doing this because we got a request from one of my I guess fans, but yeah, he wants to see a user info command, so we're going to do that for him and for you guys. So if you like the video, leave a like. If you want to see more, subscribe, and let's do this. Okay guys, so to make the command, we're going to do new Java class inside of our commands package, of course. If you don't have a commands package, I would advise that you make one, but you don't have to, of course. So we're going to call it user info, because it's going to be the user info command, which is a command that's going to be able to get information from the user, so that we can it's just because why not? So we're going to do that. So we're going to, of course, implement this method here, and I'm going to change this to event, because it's just easier to work with. So yeah, that's that. And so what we need to do now, of course, is have a constructor here for our class. So let's make it public user info. There we go. Okay, cool. So inside of here, of course, we can set the properties of our command. So usually I do something like this. This dot name is equal to we could say user info. Okay, that's perfectly valid, of course, because it just works. No errors happen. But the correct way to do this would actually be to do super.name, because you're accessing this variable here. Name, it's called name. You're accessing this variable from the super class of this class that we're working in. Okay, so basically whenever you're using this keyword, that's for accessing variables that are within your local scope of the class that you're working with. So for example, int name is equal to 5. Okay, so now if we do this.name, it's going to be referring to this one. Okay, and we get an error here because we're using a string. But yeah, but if we use super.name, it's going to be accessing the name from command. Okay, the super class, that's why it's called super. So yeah, just make sure, you don't have to, but make sure you're using super just because it's more valid. Okay, so we're going to set the name to user info, so this will be the command that they type to actually run the command. And then we can do the super.help, which is going to be the information that is provided next to the command that tells the user what the command is all about. So we'll do get some information about a user. Pretty simple stuff, right? Okay, and then next we'll have super.aliases, and this is just a way to provide different ways that the user can type the command, of course. So string, it's going to be an array of strings, of course, because there can be multiple aliases. So we'll just give one alias. We'll call it user info, and there we go. And then super.category, and this is a thing that we haven't used this one before, but basically this is just a way of putting all of your commands inside of a category, basically. Okay, so basically what this will do is whenever you do the help me command, which is something we specified right here, whenever they do $help me, it's going to bring up all of the commands, obviously, and send a message to the user. And it's going to and with the category thing, it's going to put all of the commands under different categories. Okay, and so we can set the category here by doing new category, and then inside of here we could do, or right here actually, we could do members. So this will be under the members category, because we're basically getting information about the members, and you can name it whatever you want, of course, but that's just an example. Okay, and we have an error here. I think I did something wrong. Oh, I didn't mean to use curly brackets or braces, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, that's how you do that. So you make a new category object of the category variable here. But anyway, so let's also set super.cooldown. So this is, I don't think we've used this one either before, but basically this is the amount of time in seconds that the user has to wait before typing the command again. Okay, and then we'll have finally we'll have super.arguments. Okay, and this is just basically like the help command, where it provides information about what arguments you can use with the command. And we've already done all this before, but if you don't know what I'm doing, then just go ahead and watch the last episodes. There's only 8 other episodes you can watch. They're all pretty kind of short. I don't know, some of them are around 20 minutes, but anyway, it's worth it. So now that we did that, we set the basic properties of the command, we can actually make our command here. And so basically The way that the command is going to work is they're going to type $user info and then space and then the name of the user they want to get the information on, okay? So we want to make a way so we can check and see if they provided the name of a user, because we can come across problems if they just type user info without any name to check, we can't do anything with that, right? It's just going to be nothing, right? So basically what I'm trying to say is we want to check and see if they provided any arguments, okay? And the argument, of course, is going to be the name of a user. Okay, so first we could just do that by if event.getArg. So this will get all of the arguments used inside of the command. Dot is empty, so if there are no arguments, then go ahead and run this. Event, oops, not capital. Event.reply, so basically just send the user a message. We'll just do provide a name like this, so to show them how to provide the name, of course. So user info name. There we go. So that's just pretty simple, right? But if they do provide a name or an argument, then we can actually go ahead and do some stuff with it, right? So obviously the first thing we might want to do if they actually do provide the name as an argument is actually store the user that we're trying to get information on. So that's the next logical step we want to do. So we can do that by actually making a member object of the member class, which is going to be part of your JDA API, of course. So we're going to make a member object. We'll call it name because it's going to be the name of the user we're getting information on. And so we're going to call it member name is equal to, and then we could do something like event.getMessage.get mention members, okay? And so what this will do, this method here will return all of the mentioned members of the message that was sent during the event, okay? So basically what that means is it's going to look through the whole message and look for mentioned members, which means if we go to, let's see here. So if you don't know what a mentioned member is, that'll be just someone's name behind a @ sign, okay? We've already worked with this before, but that's basically, if you press enter here, that's a mention, okay? So it gets your attention, so it's called mentioning someone, okay? So basically, it's going to get all of the mentioned members inside of the message that was sent, and then it's going to return that as a list, okay? Because if we put a semicolon here, we're going to get error, because on the right side, it's returning a list of all the mentioned members, but on the left side, it's just a single object of member, okay? So basically, it returns a list because if you think about it, it's going to be expecting sometimes to have multiple mentioned members in a message, because you can do that, right? You can have multiple members in a message, right? So instead of returning a single member, because there could be multiple members, it's going to return a list of members, okay? So what we want to do is get the first member in the list, because pretty much what we're expecting the user to do when running this command, they're going to only provide one name anyway. So we're going to get the first name, which is going to be the closest to what we're looking for, basically, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Pretty simple stuff, right? But now that we have access to the name that we're going to be getting information from, we can actually get information from it by doing name dot, and then we have all this cool information here we can get stuff from, okay? So yeah, so now that we have access to the information from the user, we can do embedded builder. We can create our embedded builder here. Is equal to new embed builder. Okay, and there we go. So of course, usually if we want to add stuff to our embed builder, we could do eb.add field, and then next line eb.add field again if we want to add another field. But we're going to make our code sexy this time, so we could do something like this. Press enter, take the semicolon off, by the way, and do that, and then we could put another method on here like this. So the first thing we want to add, let's just set the color of our embedded builder. So there we go. So then we can do color, and I'm going to use magenta because it's a pretty color, nice and pretty. And then if we want to add another method, we just press enter like that. Okay, and then let's add a thumbnail to our, embedded builder here. We're just going to add a picture I found here on the interwebs. It's basically a picture I think will match what we're doing here. It's just a question mark picture, I believe. Pretty simple stuff. You could add whatever you want, of course. And then finally, let's add one more before we test this out. We'll add let's do set author, okay? And we're going to use set author rather than the set title method, because the set title method is actually smaller in terms of font size than the set author method. So basically we're going to use the set author method and as a title basically, and I'll show you what I mean. So let's do like this. So information, so as you can see, the first parameter is going to be the string name. So we're going to do string information, let's do information on, and look at the name of the user. So we can do name.getUser.getName, okay? And we're using getUser.getName because if we use, for example, getEffectiveName, that's basically gonna return the nickname of the user if they have one. And if they don't have a nickname, it's gonna return an error, and we don't want to deal with errors because errors aren't cool. and you're cool, so we're not going to do that. So the correct way to do it without getting errors, the simple way, is to actually get the real Discord name of the user by doing this. Okay, get user.getName. Okay, so this is going to display message information on Cody, for example, and then we're going to know the next parameter. So if the parameter thing doesn't show up again, you can do Control P to see what the next parameter will be. So now it wants a string of a URL, which is going to be the URL. If you click on this information here, if you click on this part, it'll take you to that URL basically. So we need a URL to put here, and we don't really have an URL because we don't really need to. But we also want the icon thing to show up. So according to this, if we want to access the third parameter, we actually have to have a second parameter. Hopefully that makes sense. So basically, what I'm trying to say is we're going to put a dummy URL in here, which is basically just any random URL, because it doesn't matter what we want. And then, okay, here's the important part that I really wanted to have is the icon URL. And so what we're going to display for the icon URL is just going to be the avatar of the user, because basically, just why not? So you'll see what that means in a second. So if we want to get the avatar URL of the user, we could do name.get user.get avatar URL. So that's perfect because it returns the URL of the avatar of the user as a string, and that's exactly what we need for the third parameter. Okay, so yeah, I know that was a lot, but let's actually go ahead and test this. It's all very simple. We've already done this before. So to actually send this in the chat, of course, we could do events.reply, and then we could do eb for our embedded builder.build. Okay, so that's how you send a embedded builder in chat. Okay, so yeah, pretty simple stuff. So let's actually register our command before we move on. So builder.add a command, new user info. There we go. Semicolon. Okay, I know there's a lot, so let's run this now. Okie dokie. So user info and then @Cody. Okay. Okay, let's run this and see what happens. So we get awesome. It works perfectly. So we get our image here, which is going to be our thumbnail image that we set right here. Wait. Yeah. Wait. No. Wrong thing. Right here, this is our thumbnail, so that's what that is. Okay, and then also we have our title here, our set author method, which is able to set the information on Cody. We set that there. Then of course, if we click on this, it'll take us to our dummy link that we set it to be. And then also we have finally, which is our third parameter, we have the icon right here, which is going to be the icon of the user that we're getting information on, which is pretty cool. Okay, so let's actually add some more stuff, of course. Oh, actually, no. I want to show you something. So ignore this. This was just for testing purposes. There we go. So okay, let me show you something here. So if we do user info @Cody, of course it's going to provide the user information for Cody. But a possible problem we may come across is if we do it without the mention tag in front of the @ sign. I mean, so if they don't provide the name as a mention like this, then we can get an error. As you can see down here, we got a big error. And so let's check out the error. Okay. So it says index out of bounds exception, index 0 out of bounds for length 0. So basically what that means is, if you go to the line, if you can click here, this is where the error occurred here. So basically what happened is we're trying to get the message and we're trying to get the mentioned members of that message, right? But as you can see, we didn't mention any members in the message that we sent. Okay, so as a result of that, it returned a index out of bounds exception because it has nothing to access. There is no 0 index to access of here because this thing is empty. Okay, so basically what we need to do is handle this so that whenever they don't provide a mentioned member or a name of a person as a mention, then we need to tell them to provide the name as a mention, because if we don't, then it's just going to return an exception. It's going to shut down our whole command. Okay, and that's not cool. So basically what we need to do is handle this basically. Okay, so we can do that by having a try and catch statement, of course, because that's how you handle exceptions. So what we're going to do here is cut this out. Control X. So we're going to declare the name object here, but inside of here we're going to set it inside of that try. So basically this will do what it just did up here basically, but this time it's going to catch the exception if it occurs. So if the exception does occur, then we want to handle it, of course. So we're going to handle it by doing index out of bounds exception EX, okay, for exception. And then what we want to do is output exception occurred, something simple like that, right? I don't think I spelled occurred correctly. There we go. And then we want to tell the user to provide a mentioned user whenever they type the command. Okay, so we can do that by doing events.reply. You need to provide the name as a mention. Okay, So basically, just to run this down if you don't understand, if they run the command and provide the name of the user as I mentioned, okay, then it's going to store that name inside of this name object here, and then we're good to go. It's going to run all of this, right? But if they run the command with the name as not a mention, just without a @ in front, then it's going to throw an exception because you can't access something that's not there, of course. So this is going to happen. So it's going to catch that exception, right? And then it's going to print out this, and then it's going to tell the user to do this, okay? So that will handle the exception now. That should work perfectly fine. But we have a little bit of a problem here. If you look down here, name has not been initialized, right? That's because basically we're trying to run all of this code here, even though an exception might have just happened, okay? So basically, okay, let's say if the exception does happen, right? We do catch the exception, blah, blah, blah. This will still happen, okay? Because this is now done with, it's done running, but all of this is trying to run, okay? But we can't exactly run this because we still haven't set the name of the user because the exception happened, okay? So as you can see, a problem could happen here. Hopefully I explained that good enough. So what we really want to do is move this inside of here so that this code here, the real code of our program, is only run if the name is successfully sent, okay? Or set, I mean. So if the name is not successfully set because they didn't provide the name correctly, then this is going to run, and then nothing else is behind this. No other code is back here. So now the program is just going to stop. The command is just going to stop, basically, okay? So hopefully that makes a lot of sense. I hope I didn't ramble on too much. Hopefully I explained it good enough. But let's just go ahead and run our program and let's figure this out if we did it correctly. So we'll do user info, and we'll do the @ the correct way, user info, and then good, it provides our information, basic information. But let's do it without the @ now. So user info Cody. Now let's wait 10 seconds, but of course we have to do that. So now let's do that, and it says you need to provide the name as I mentioned, and then in our console, of course, it says exception occurred, okay? So awesome, we don't get any errors anymore. It handled the exception like we wanted it to. Okay, so now that we actually handle that exception, we can move on and keep adding information to our embedded builder to provide user information, okay? So let's get rid of this semicolon here, and we'll add another method here. So let's add another one. Let's add let's do set description. Okay, so this one will just provide some more information on the user, of course. So we'll get the name of the user. So we'll do name.getUser.getName, and we'll say, let's get the date that the user joined on, and then tell them, and it will display that date for us. Okay, so Cody joined on, okay, and then we'll do name dot, and you can actually get the date that they joined on, get join date. Okay, so right here, so this will get the date that it joined on, and there we go. So that's actually it for that. So that's what we're going to display here. So let's try that out. So user info Cody, Cody, like that, boom, and then it says Cody joined on 2018 10/21T19 :51:14.779Z. As you can see, that's really weird. So we actually, that's not good, right? So basically what we want to do is format it so it only shows the, we can make it look nice, okay, basically. So format a date inside of Java, there's actually many ways I've seen that you can do that, but we're going to keep it simple. We can actually do it with one piece of code, basically. So we could do a date time formatter, so we can make a new object of date time formatter. We'll just call it FMT for format, and then date time formatter dot of pattern. Okay, and then we could provide the format that we want to display it in. So YYY for the year in 4 characters or 4 digits, and then the month in 2 digits, and the day in 2 digits. Okay, so basically this is going to be the format that the date will be displayed in. Okay, but to apply that format, we could do something we could add this method here to our date format, and then plug in the method or the object that we just made. Okay, so basically this is just gonna format the date after it returns it with this method. Okay, so let's try restarting here and showing you the result of this. Okie dokie. Hopefully I'm not going too fast for you guys, but we are pretty advanced at this point. So yeah, if you have any questions, you can always leave a comment. And if you don't understand, you could always just pause the video, play around with it, anything you want to do. Anyway, so let's run this here. And it says Cody joined on 2018 10/21. Awesome, it works. It looks way better now. So I joined on the 10th month on the 21st day on 2018. Okay, so basically that works perfectly fine. And we can actually even add some more information. Okay, so let's add a field this time. So let's add let's provide information on what game they're playing at this current moment in time, basically. Okay, so yeah, so we can do game. So let's get the game that they're playing. So we can do that by doing name dot get game. So right here, there's a perfect method for that. Wait, yeah, wait, no. We want to have a comma here because game is going to be the title or the label, and then the next thing is going to be the information that you want to display. So that will be game, and then we want to get the game as a string, or so that's good. So that's what that will do, and then last thing we want to have is true. So basically, this will provide a game label here, and then it will provide the name of the game under that label, and then it will display inline, of course. So anyway, let's try that out, see what happens. That was a pretty simple piece of code. So let's run that. Okay, cool. So it says game JetBrains IDE, and if you look up here, I am indeed playing or using JetBrains IDE. So that works good, but we can come across a problem here. Okay, I want you to notice this. So let's say the user that we're checking information for is not playing a game. Okay, what's going to happen? So let's check our bot, because our bot, as you can see, is not playing a game up here. So user info ti. Okay, and we get a big giant error. Okay, so let's check it out. Okay, so on line 37, let's click that. So it happens on the line that we just created. It says null pointer exception. Okay, and the reason this occurs is because basically we're returning null because we're trying to get the game of a user, even though the user is not playing any game, of course. So it makes no sense to get the game of a user that's not playing a game. So that's why it returns the null pointer exception, because the game that they're playing is null. It's nothing. They're not playing a game, right? So basically what we need to do is create a way to handle this exception so that basically our code can see if they're playing a game. And if they are playing a game, then it'll set the game equal to that game and then return that as a string, I guess, so we can display it. But if they're not playing a game, we want to actually handle that exception and then just give the user some other information like they're not playing a game or something like that. So the best way to explain that is to show you. So there's many ways we could probably do this, but the effective way that I found that we could do this is by actually having a method here that is able to do all of that for us, handle the exception, and return a string of the game that they're playing, okay? So yeah, so we're going to make a method here. Make sure it's outside of your main method here, of course. Right here. Not the main method, I mean, but right here. So make sure it's outside of here. So we're going to make it right here. We're going to call it private, and we're going to call it display game info, okay? And we forgot to return a value. So we're going to return a string, which is going to be the game that they're playing, of course. And there we go. So we actually need to provide a parameter, which is going to be the name of the user that we're checking for the game of, I guess. So member name. So we're going to provide, they're going to plug in a name or a member object into this method whenever they're calling the method, and then it's going to take that name object and then get information from it, like the game of the user, like we're doing here. So if you don't know what I mean, I'll show you in a second. So basically what we want to do here is check and see if the user is playing a game, okay? So we could do that by doing string game is equal to name.getGame.getName, of course. So basically that's just going to do what it did up here. It's going to get the name of the game that the user is playing, okay? And so, of course, if they aren't playing a game, it's going to return a null pointer exception. So we actually want to handle this. We want to handle this by putting this in here, okay? So basically, if they are playing a game, of course, it's just going to set the name of the game equal to this little string here. But if they are not playing a game, it's going to return null pointer exception. So what we want to do is catch that null pointer exception. We'll call it EXX for exception. And then something's going to happen here, okay? So if they do get the name of the game correctly without any errors, we're going to return something like this, playing game, okay? So that's going to return a string like we told it to. So it's going to say playing game and then the name of the game. But if there's a null pointer exception, meaning they aren't playing a game, we could return nothing. Or we could let's actually do something like no game is being played, okay? Okay, cool. So that's what that will do. Hopefully that makes sense. So we actually need to use this method here. So we could do display game info. Let's get that slash out of here. And so we need to pass in a member object, of course. If you do Control P, it tells us what we need to pass in. So yeah, we need to pass in a member object. So we already have one up here, of course, which is going to be the name object. So we're going to pass it in. Then now it's going to do all its magic in here for us, and it's going to return the name of the game that they're playing, or this message, of course, if they're not playing a game. So hopefully that makes sense. So we're going to restart our bot here. Okay, so user info at Cody, and this will just test to see if it still works with me, someone who is playing a game. So yeah, it still says playing game JetBrains IDE. Of course, we added this little part here. But yeah, that works perfectly. I mean, it works good. So let's actually do it with someone who is not playing a game, which is going to be the bot in this channel. So IT or TI, and boom. And it says no game is being played. So that works awesome, okay? So we made it. It works awesome. It handled the exception for us, and good. So hopefully that made sense to you. Pretty cool stuff. So let's actually add some more information. Let's do something like this. We'll get let's get the status of the user, like if they're online or offline or whatever. So we'll do something like this, status. Let's get the status of the user. So we can do name.getOnlineStatus. There's a method just for that purpose. And so we could do getOnlineStatus, and we actually need to get it as a string because it's going to return a online status method or object, I believe. I don't know, but anyway, so we want to get it as a string, and then of course true for inline. Okay, so that's going to display the status of the user. And then finally, let's add one more before we test this out. Let's display the nickname of the user if they have any nicknames. So nickname, name dot, and then we could just do get nickname. Perfectly awesome. Okay, that's awesome. So we actually may come across a problem though, because like basically just like the game get game method here, it's going to return null if there is no game. Basically this is going to return null if there's no nickname. Okay, so what we want to do is handle that exception in case it happens. So we could do that. We could also make a method just for that also, but I want to show you how to make it even more simple by doing an inline if statement. Okay, so we could do that like this, something like this. So name.get nickname, okay, is equal to null. So if it does return null, meaning there is no actual nickname, so then you want to display no nickname. So that's what you're going to return, no nickname. But this is going to be the sign for else right here, colon. So, but if there is, if it does not return null, this is the else statement here, then you want to display name.getNickname, okay? And then finally true for the third parameter. So I know that was a lot. So basically what this is going to do is this whole line here is going to get the name, get the nickname of the member object that you provide, and then it's going to say if the nickname is equal to null, meaning there is no nickname, then actually just display no nickname. But if there is, or else, if there is a nickname, then you're going to display the actual nickname that there is, okay? So it's better to demonstrate, so let's go ahead and restart our bot here. Let's do that. Jeez, I'm talking fast. I need to calm down. Okay, so let's press enter, and we get all this cool information. So, yeah, playing game, status, do not disturb. So that works awesome. And then we get nickname. So no nickname because I don't have a nickname right now. So let's actually add a nickname so we can test that part out too. I'll just call myself Booty Master. Okie dokie. So we'll run this again. User info Cody. Boom. And there it goes. It says Booty Master instead of no nickname. So that works awesome. Okay. So yeah, that works. So let's add one more thing, one more piece of information to our little program here. Let's add a field for the roles of the user. Let's have it display all of the roles that the user has on this server. Okay, so we could do something like this. So to get the roles of a user, we could do name.getRoles. Okay, but we come across another problem here. If you look on the right side, it's going to return a list of all the roles of the user. But we need to actually have that as a string, right? Because we're trying to for the second parameter, right? We're trying to have a string, right? But we can't display the list of all the roles as a string. So basically, what we need to do is have a way to display the list of all the roles as a string, because there's no simple way to do that as far as I know. So the way I thought of is actually to make a method for that also. So basically, what we're gonna do is actually pass in the roles of the user into this method, and it's going to take all of those roles and then condense all of that into a string and then return that string so we can display it right here as the second parameter. So I know that's a lot, so let me just go ahead and show you. So we'll just call it private string get roles get roles as string. Okay, so it's going to take one parameter. It's going to take a list of all the roles of the user, of course. So list, and make sure you don't import the list of java.awt. Make sure you go down one and do java.utilities. You want this kind of list. There's multiple lists in Java, so you make sure you get the right one. So list, and then we're going to call it roles list, because it's going to be a list of all the roles, of course. And so what we want to do is let's have a string here that's going to contain all of the roles, and eventually we're going to return the roles, which is going to be the string that has all of the roles in it, basically. So yeah, so what we want to do here is actually check and see if the list that we're sending inside of this method is empty, because basically if we send a list that's empty, like basically if we do well, let's actually run this here. So we'll do get roles as string, and then we want to do name dot get roles. Okay, so we're passing in name dot get roles into this method here, so it's going to be sent here. Oh, let's get rid of this error by adding this third parameter here. So yeah, we're sending the roles of the user, right? So basically, if the user does not have any roles once we send it here, let's say the user doesn't have any roles on the server, right? We can come across a problem, right? So we want to check and see if this parameter here that we just sent from here has any roles before we actually condense the roles into a string. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. I swear if that didn't make sense, I'm sorry. But so we can check and see if the user has any roles by doing roles dot is empty, roles list dot is empty. So let's just go ahead and do, if it's not empty, then run this code here. But if it is empty, by doing else, then we could do something like this. We could do roles, which is going to be our string up here, is equal to no roles. Okay, so therefore we're going to return no roles as the result of this method being called, of course, because they didn't have any roles. And so it's going to therefore display roles as the label, and then under that it's going to display no roles as the information. So yeah, you'll see in a second. I'll make sure to show you what that means. So what we're going to do, since the roles list is not empty according to this line here, what we want to do is have a for loop that checks and sees what the roles are. Okay, and then we want to add each role step by step into a string, which is going to be our string right here. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me show you. So for, and then we could do int I is equal to 1, okay, and then we could do I is less than roles list dot size oops, oh yeah, we want to set it to 0 because it's 0 based, of course, whenever we're dealing with arrays and lists and stuff like that. And so we're going to do I plus plus. So basically what we're going to do here with this for loop is cycle through every role in this list here. And so what we want to do is have a line of code that sets or adds the role that we're on basically in the list. So let's say we're on the first role in the list. We want to get the name of that role and then add it to our string here. So we can do that by something like this. So roles is equal to roles plus roles list dot get, and we want to get the one that we're on, right? But we have a little bit of a problem here, because whenever we do roles list dot get I, basically that's going to return a role, not a name of the role. Okay, so it's going to return a role object. Okay, so what we want to do is get the name of that role object. Okay, so what we want to do actually is let's make a temp role object here. So we'll do role temporary role. Well, let's import role here. There we go. So role, we'll just call it temp role is equal to, and then we'll say roles list dot get dot get 0. Okay, so we're getting the one, or not 0, I, because we're getting the role of the one that we're currently on in the iteration, which is our for loop. So we have an error here. We see on the right side we have a object here. This is going to be an object, not a role. And then on the left side we have a role. Okay, so we have a mismatch basically. So what we want to do is actually cast this so it's actually role. So for some reason when we get the index of whatever one we're on in this roles list, it's going to return it as an object, not a role. So basically we're just casting it to a role. So basically it's going to be equal now on both sides. Okay, so now we have a role on both sides, because of course if we remove this, it's going to be an object on the right side. Okay, I don't know why it does that, but that's just what you need to do. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So what we want to do now is have it so we can actually add the name of this role here to our string here. So we do which is our string here. So roles is equal to roles plus we'll have a comma here, plus temp role dot get name. So this is going to get the name of the role here. So that works. And we have a little bit of a problem. It says variable roles might not have been initialized. I guess we have to initialize it for some reason, but we'll do that. So up here, we'll just set it to be empty. So anyway, this will just, if we did this correctly, it'll just add all of the roles step by step into this string here. It'll just keep concatenating it into the string here. So hopefully that made sense. I know it was a lot, so just pause the video if you don't understand and just play around with this code to make sure you understand it. So yeah, sorry if you don't understand it. So basically, we already set the code up here. We had the method that we created, and we're passing in the roles of the user, and then it's going to take all of those roles, and then it's going to basically see if the list that you provided, the roles list that you provided, is empty, and if it's not empty, it's going to run this loop here, and it's going to loop through every role in that list that you provided, and it's going to get the name of the get the name of each role in that list that you provided, and add the name of that role to the string that you have here. And then once that is all done, once it's added every single name of each role into that string, it's gonna finally return that string out here. Yeesh, that's a lot, I know. But anyway, let's restart our bot here to test it out. Sheesh, that was a lot. Okay, so user info, booty master. I should probably change my nickname. So we get our roles here. So as you can see, it's a little weird because we have a comma in front of it. But anyway, it displayed our role successfully because our role, as you can see here, is Supreme Overlord, and then it displays Supreme Overlord. So let's actually test this further by adding a bunch of other roles to our name here, our user, so we can make sure that it's able to display multiple roles at once. So then it says, awesome, so it displays all of the roles that we have. So Supreme Overlord, Proficient Coder, and New Role. So that's awesome. So it displayed all of the roles that my user currently has, as it's supposed to. But of course, it still looks weird here because it has a comma in front of this role, the first role. Okay, so the easy way, there's probably an easier way, but the way I found to fix this is just by setting the first role in the list manually by doing something like this. So role is equal to temporal. That's role temporal is equal to. And we'll cast this, of course, like we did before. Roles list dot get 0. So that will get the first role in the list, of course, and so that will set the first one like that. And so what we want to do then, or no, we actually need to add it to the string, of course. So it's equal to role temporal dot get name. Okay, so that's what that's going to do. So we don't even need to initialize it anymore because it's being initialized here. So it's setting role is equal to temporal dot get name. Okay. So that's going to set the first role in the list to that value. Okay, so then what we want to do is add the other roles in the list to that first role because, yeah. So basically what we want to do is skip the first one. So we're going to set I equal to 1. So it's going to skip the first role in the list. And then what it's going to do is let's get rid of here. Since we already declared role temporal. So yeah, it's going to now do each one and add it to the first one. Okay, and the reason we do this is because if we didn't do this, it would have the comma in front of it. Okay, so the way to fix that is, of course, just set the first one by yourself and then add each one, and then the comma will be in front of each one because it's a list. Sheesh, I know that probably did not make any sense, but it will be fixed basically. That's all I gotta say. So let's test this out and make sure it works. So we'll do user info. Cody, and then nothing happens. Let's try again. There we go. So Supreme Overlord, Proficient Coder, and New Role. So it looks awesome now. It's all beautiful. And there we go. So that's actually it for this episode. Actually, no. Let's make it even more pretty real quick before we end the episode, because why not? We want a command that looks nice and pretty. So we'll do event.reply, and then we'll give them the embedded builder. But then let's add something like this. Reply. Let's get their attention. So event.get author.get as mentioned. So that'll get the name of the person who sent the command as mentioned. So once we got their attention, we could do something like this. Cody space there you go. So that will say there you go after they send the information that they just requested. Okay. So I know that was simple. And then something else I added, or I want to add, is going to be something simple like this. So once they display the date that of the user joined on, we could display a clock emoji, because why not? And yeah, so anyway, so let's just restart and check it out. And there we go. So we got our little clock emoji here. Looks kind of cool. And then we have, oh yeah, we have our mention here. So it says, there you go. So that works. So hopefully you like that, guys. I know this was a long episode probably, but if you liked the episode, just make sure you leave a like. If you have any questions at all, because I know this was kind of crazy, just leave a comment and I'll help you. Also, we have a Discord that's in the description. You can join it, ask questions, hang out with us, anything you want to do, show some support. Also, we have all the code from today's episode inside of this link here in the description. You can join it or click on it, bookmark it for future reference, anything you want to do. So make sure you check that out. It's all of the code. And then, yeah, so if you liked the video, leave a like. If you want to see more, subscribe, and peace.